The following opinions expressed in this program are that of Noah Waterman and do not reflect those of any other
Guys, that can't be right. Can we try that again?
The following opinions expressed in this program are that of Noah Waterman, his guests, his parents, your uncle, your auntie, your fourth grade teacher, that guy that brings his iguana to the park, the state of Mississippi, the Brian Setzer Orchestra, three babies in a trench coat, you, yes, you, in the red and blue striped polo. It's
This is the best game of all time.
You saw the title, you looked at the thumbnail, and I know what you're thinking. That certainly is not the Disco Elysium I remember. Well, you're right. You're right, guys. It's not. Welcome, friends and folks, to the Kaiju Lounge, your home for humor, opinions, and nerd shit, and welcome to the best game of all time podcast. It is the end of the year. God, it feels like it went by so fast. The end of the year. And it's been nuts. It's been pretty crazy. It's been exciting to bring the podcast back after its hiatus. And we've only gotten, four? This will be the fifth episode in 2024. Which is saying something because we still did 14 games. It just kind of shows the rate and the audacity that this podcast has. But let's get the elephant in the room first and foremost. Yes, we're not doing Disco Elysium, like I said at the end of the last episode. There is a very good, very simple explanation as to why we didn't want to. That's actually not really true. It's not that we didn't want to per se. I think it's just that we it's a pretty big, in-depth game. And the four of us, committed to finishing that game, to playing that game through to completion, because we felt like, because of the nature of the various different endings and the various ways the game can go, it felt right that we all kind of got through the same point. Of course, beating a game when you are, in your late 30s, early 40s is not the simple task it once used to be. And we just hadn't gotten there. We hadn't gotten there because of life, because of, maybe far too topical things happening in the real world, and decided not necessarily to put that on pause, but just to buy us more time. And in the act of buying us more time, we went for the holiday spirit. It's a December episode. You know how rare it is? Because of the nature of having to plan ahead and prep and not in trying to gather schedules. You know how rare it is that I get to do anything even remotely topical on this podcast? So why not take advantage? And Pat was the one who actually came up with the idea of doing a Nightmare Before Christmas episode, because there were 2 Nightmare Before Christmas games, and we get into all that. And, is it as good as Disco Elysium? You'll have to see for yourself. I don't think you'd be surprised in what the answer is. But was it as fun as talking about Disco Elysium? I would argue so. I would argue this was still a very fun episode to record and put together because, sometimes it's just good to get into some schlock, and that's kind of what we did here. So, get into the holiday spirit, no matter which holiday you celebrate. Throw back some tea, eggnog, a hot toddy, if you will. Get yourself in your coziest armchair and take a good listen to this episode of the best game of all time, The Nightmares Before and After Christmas.
I gotta set the tone appropriately for today's discussion. If you'll give me just a moment. Bum 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 bum. This is Halloween Town. This is Halloween Town. This is Halloween Town, town. The town where it's only Halloween. This is Halloween. This is Halloween Town. Town. This is Halloween. Halloween. Halloween Town. Halloween Town. I'm the Pumpkin King. Halloween Town. Come watch me do my pumpkin thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the best game of all time. The greatest intro I think we've ever had. Making my job in the edit that much easier.
Love it.
This is the only podcast that dares to do the malignable, the magniloquent, nay, dare I say, the merry task of reviewing, rating, and ranking every game ever made. A task that may put us on either the naughty or the nice list, depending on who wins the war on Christmas. And of course, Christmas is better with the family who makes you feel the most uncomfortable. So allow me to introduce my panel. Patrick, the mayor of Arbor Day Town, Malloy. Michael, the mayor of Groundhog's Day Town, Petrocelli. And Louis, the mayor of National Cheese Day Town, Thomas. Guys, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
Doing wonderful.
I was
As you can hear, overflowing.
Kwanzaa, but I'll take it.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to make that joke, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said it. And of course, if you can tell, it is December, and in order to jump on the bandwagon of the holiday season, despite me being Jewish, we are diving into the holiday cheer with two very different games based on the popular Christmas But Not Christmas franchise. The Nightmare Before Christmas is a 1993 stop-motion movie produced by Tim Burton, whose dark, macabre environment captured a generation of would-be goth kids and weirdos who finally felt as though they had a cartoon hero representing them. Despite only ever having a single film, the franchise has remained as popular as ever and basically kept Hot Topic in business long after they should have been shut down. It also spawned two video games based on the franchise, but not on the movie directly. Today, my guests and I are talking about the prequel game, The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King for the Game Boy Advance, and the sequel game, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge for the PS2 and Xbox. But before we get into that, we got to play a little game ourselves called Get to Know Your Panel. Get to Know Your Panel is a game where you, the listener, get to know a little something about the voices you'll be hearing for the next hour or so. Sometimes it's a question for one, sometimes it's a question for the whole group. This is a question for the whole group. Guys, I joked a bit about it in the intro, but I am curious. The idea of Halloween Town and Christmas Town alludes to the existence of other holiday towns. What town would you have liked to see represented, and what do you think it would be like?
I think because you at the start of the movie you see the Grove, and I know the plot of the PS2 game also involves collecting all the other holiday doors, so you do see which other worlds exist there. I guess, wasn't there a New Year's Eve town, if I'm not mistaken, or is it 4th of July?
It was Independence Day Town.
Independence Day Town. I knew it was like a celebratory fireworks type town. I think that's the one I'd be curious to see, although I guess it's fairly easy to imagine.
You think it would be stuck in the era of its initial founding, or like what do you think Independence Day Town
actually
is like?
That's it's just like the Battle of Yorktown over and over again. You're like, I thought this was going to be a celebration. This is not what I was anticipating. I kind of assumed it would be like the bicentennial over and over again, or some kind of like old timey feeling.
Would it just be like America? Like just
America.
fucking America. Like,
It's just called America.
there'd be no dogs in Independence Town because they would all be dead or afraid of the firecrackers all the time.
That is true. Yeah, there's just the streets
It's a bunch
outside
of
of town.
really happy people and dogs just shivering in a corner somewhere.
No one
It's
owns
actually
pets.
dog
They're just
hell.
stray dogs everywhere. Yeah, 'cause they've all run away from their homes.
I mean, I want to see St. Patrick's Day if for no other reason that my name is Patrick, and I want to see it. But I imagine it would either, since it's a children's movie, be a very tame like Irish stereotypes and shamrocks, or if it was really representative, it would just be people vomiting in the street and like trying to do bar crawls and failing after like 3 bars. So
It's just Boston on St. Patrick's Day every day.
Truly, yeah, truly.
But animated by Tim
I-
Burton. And
Yes.
that whole company, yes.
Stop motion Boston. Love it.
The vomit would look good, so.
It'd be a pain in the ass to animate, but yes.
I'm going to, similar to Petro's answer, I would like to say Juneteenth, for mine. Largely just because mostly this is going to be a Tim Burton property, so I would like to see Tim Burton find more than one black person. I mean, you can't have Ken Page voice everybody.
Listen, he has had Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay. So you just want to see Tim Burton sweat, is what you're saying?
Who played Harvey Dent in his Batman film?
Billy D. Williams.
Oh,
That's true,
that's
it was
right.
Billy
There we go.
Williams.
There we go.
Yeah.
And he was actually, Billy D. Williams was supposed to be in the sequel, and they had to pay him a fuck ton of cash to
Yeah.
get him out of it.
Like the reason he signed on is because he thought he was going to get to be Two-Face.
Yes.
And
Tim Burton wanted him to be Two-Face. It was truly like, I think, well, Warner Brothers or whoever didn't want it, so.
Right,
well, thank goodness we got that Tommy Lee Jones performance instead. his Two-Face was totally worth it.
Chewing up the scenery. Guys, let's get into it. I know we're all chomping at the bit to talk about these two games. As much fun as they both were. So let's kick off with The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King. Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King was a 2005 Metroidvania for the Game Boy Advance, published by Toze Software, who has a laundry list of games ranging from the Dragon Ball Z series for the Super Nintendo all the way up to assisting on the Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door remake. Taking place 1 year before the events of the film, you play as Jack Skellington, who, while preparing for Halloween, discovers that the town is infested with Oogie's bugs and Sally has been kidnapped for the first time. You jump, crawl, and discover new weapons like the pumpkin bong and the batarang, which only flies forward and not backwards, as you traverse through Halloween Town to stop Oogie Boogie and his henchmen Lock, Shock, and Barrel. The game did score decently with critics, hitting mostly an average of 65 to 70% scores. I actually might have gotten ahead of myself here because I want to talk about this game, but first, let's actually talk a little bit about the movie. I'm assuming we've all seen it before.
Yes.
What are people's feelings about the movie today? I know, Tro, you said you had watched it recently. Pat has, I think, always seemed like the guy who just identifies with Jack Skellington. And probably both... Yeah?
I'm much more werewolf man, to be honest with you. I wish I was Jack Skellington, but I'm definitely the hairy, loud guy that like nobody wants to talk to. So I splat a lot. As a kid, one of my mom's favorite stories to tell was that she took me to the theater to see it, and that all of the other children in the theater. So I probably would have been like right before my 7th birthday. I was probably 6 because it came out in '93. Yeah, I was the only kid that didn't scream and cry and need to be dragged out of the theater. So my mother tells the story of like showing up. It's me. I'm so excited about it, and all of the other kids are gone. So by the end of the movie, it was just like me and my mom sitting in the theater, and I was just enthralled. So
Great.
Okay.
yeah, and I've always loved it. And then Hot Topic basically made sure that my mother always had something Nightmare Before Christmas themed to get me around Christmas time. I have salt and pepper shakers, my phone case. What else? I mean, I own the movie probably in VHS and DVD and Blu-ray. So definitely has followed me through my life.
Great. Louis, Tro?
I remember watching it back in the day. It clearly did not leave a lasting impression because while I was playing these games, I had a lot of questions about, like, did any of this tie into the movie at all? I had considered rewatching the movie for this, but as I was playing the games, typically I come into the recordings with, like, a lot of questions that the games make me ask about, like, these sort of things. Not to get too ahead, the only question I was asking about playing both of these games is how little can I responsibly play before I can feel entitled to give like a full review to it. So I was like, you know what, to remain curious about these games, I think I have to know as little about the source material as I can to ask a lot of questions about how relevant any of the elements that they incorporated into these games are to the source material.
You literally avoided watching the movie just so you could force yourself to play more of the game.
Yeah, it made me a more curious gamer.
Very nice.
But I remember thinking at the time it was like fine, but that's about it. I wouldn't.
Yeah. What's funny, Louis, is that as someone who, I saw Nightmare Before Christmas as a kid, although I didn't see it in theaters, weirdly. I waited for it to come on video and then didn't really like it. I was slightly unsettled by it, especially the part near the end where Oogie Boogie turns into bugs because his sheet rips off and he it causes his entire body to fall apart. That really bothered me as a kid. And so I was not into it. And actually made a point of about a week ago watching the movie again as an adult to see, one, just to kind of refresh myself on it, and also just to see how it held up. And also that part where Oogie turned into bugs takes 2 seconds because I think it was a real pain in the ass to animate, so they don't linger on it for too long. So it wasn't. Honestly, I got more out of it as an adult. I think I'm maybe a little more keyed into some of the humor of it than I was as a kid when I didn't really know what to expect. What's funny though, Louis, is you were talking about maybe wanting to have more questions by not knowing. I have just as many questions knowing what happens in the movie about the idea for both of these games. But starting, if we're talking about the prequel first, it doesn't make sense. Wouldn't it make more sense if he broke Oogie Boogie open at the end of Nightmare Before Christmas and then all his bugs are loose and that's why you're dealing with them in the Game Boy Advance game, instead of why is our Oogie's I don't know. I didn't get to the end of the Game Boy Advance game. Spoiler alert. I don't know if you create Oogie Boogie by accident or something at the end by defeating all those bugs.
No, he's very much in the story of the Game Boy Advance game. He tells Lock, Shock, and Barrel to go out and cause mayhem alongside his bugs.
He's there in Oogie Boogie form.
Well,
so
it's not. Why are the bugs around? I guess you couldn't think. I mean,
he's the king of the bugs.
Because quite frankly, those henchmen villains, those kind of regular character villains, make more sense than what was in the PS2, where it's just
evil versions of denizens of Halloween Town,
right?
But
right.
More generic.
At least the bugs feels like it's an antithetic. It's a Kremling to the Donkey Kong sort of.
I agree with that.
Kind of makes sense.
I suppose it's just funny to me, especially when I saw things like where the idea for the frog gun came from, which was just that 2 seconds when Sally's making the soup in the movie and uses the frog once to add
there's a tie-in
ingredient.
for that. Okay,
frog's breath. But she uses frog's breath, but also. Frog's breath covers the poison. Frog's breath is not the poison.
she's trying to cover up the fact that she's poisoning Dr. Finkelstein. And so, that relationship is real bad in the movie.
Yeah,
it's very bad. Yes.
But it's just funny to me. It exemplifies to me how much of it felt like a kind of a barrel scraping session to be how are we going to make a game out of this, and literally went through the movie and we're every little thing. Someone holds a frog at one point. I think there was a bat shaped like a boomerang. It from my experience of watching some of Jack's animations in this game, I guess he humped a lot in the movie. I don't remember that, but
he did sashay as well. Every time he walked through a gate, he really had a nice little hip twist.
I don't know what was going on with the folks animating his character movements, but it's a weird one.
Yeah, I'll say with the movie, I remember liking it. I remember I was always into the Universal monsters, the little classic, Frankenstein, Wolfman, that kind of stuff. So having a kind of related spoopy but not spooky kind of world. I remember the idea. I remember even as a kid when it came out in '93, I thought the idea of the movie was cooler than the execution. I thought it was cool. I thought the stop motion was great. I thought it was great to look at. But I remember being kind of like with the story, it was kind of this is it? And not feeling like anyone was... maybe I was being too snotty as a kid, but I feel like nobody was really sympathetic enough for me to care. I just remember it was kind of like the later Narnia films. It was just nice to have on with someone else's music playing in the background.
I mean, there's just not much.
Not a fan of Oingo Boingo's Danny Elfman? Is that what you're saying?
I am a huge fan of Danny Elfman. I am not a fan of Danny Elfman's lyric music, if that makes sense.
Wait,
I like his. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you were putting on other people's music in the background, you're basically missing the whole movie because most of that movie is singing.
But that's kind of it. Is I like looking at it. Once I've seen the movie, I'm not rewatching it because the story's great. I think it maybe has gotten a little overblown culturally. Both these games came out over 10 years after the fact.
But around 10, right?
And I think there are better Disney movies that have gotten less room in the zeitgeist, and I think it's I don't consider it enough of a classic that 10 years, 15 years later, you're giving it a game, a refresh.
Well, go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the thing about it. What else has kind of cornered the market on like goth kid Halloween as like / Christmas aesthetic? I feel like nobody like first of all,
Weird market to corner.
but like
Well, it worked.
a very lucrative one. Like
Well,
like
but that's also a valid point. No one's really tried. What else is trying to jump in on that? The Monster High dolls. Like
Yeah.
what else is really out there that has attempted that? Which is, you know, in the way that the internet caters to niche markets. It's a niche market, but it's obviously one that has stuck with people. Like I
Right.
think if better, more interesting things have come along, we might not be having these conversations.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I do love that movie. I mean, I'll agree with you. No, the lyrics are really clunky at
Yeah.
certain parts. Like, and I mean, I listened to the soundtrack 1,000 times. I was really obsessed with it as a kid. But yeah, there's like some weird rhymes where it's similar to in Star Fox 64 when Falco says, "Hey Einstein, I'm on your side," and you're like, how does Falco Lombardi, a bird in the Lilat system, know who Einstein is? Like, there's definitely a lot of things that like Jack Skellington talks about. Like, I feel like he knows the word for snow, but he doesn't know what snow is and what's this, or like he like very clearly has like concepts of Christmas, but he's describing them. Tinsel. I mean, for example, he uses the word tinsel. It's like, how do you know what tinsel is? Like, you're saying you don't understand the concept of tinsel, but you're using the word tinsel, so you know it. But like, yeah, I still like it. I let it wash over me in the same way I do, like, I don't know, other maybe complex lyrical things, a lot of musicals and stuff like that. I feel like in general, you kind of just have to let some of it pass you by, and not be too, like, not show too much consternation over like their choices. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It is weird.
Yeah. Look, I think in the end, it's a good movie. I'm just not sure it necessarily deserves, or I think the hype is maybe overblown.
Right.
I think it is. You know, it's still I think good and probably fun to watch, and something I look forward to showing my kid one day. Not like the Game Boy Advance game. It feels like that we all feel. So now let's gone full circle, coming back to this. What did we think of the Game Boy Advance game, The Night Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King?
I mean, I'll start real hot. I hated it. I don't like the thing that it's referencing. It's referencing Castlevania. I don't like Castlevania. I sure as shit am not going to like a game where I'm somehow like half the screen tall, but every like directional attack is like either a little bit too tall or a little too short, so it hits me in the head, or a little bit too tall, so like it hits me when I jump, like the electric bolts that were going sideways. You can't casually or easily like duck under things. You have to hold on to the ledges of shit. Like, I hated it.
All right, guys, thank you for watching so
All right,
much.
There we go. Okay. That's all right.
We all just
Good
tuned
night.
in to see what Patrick thought.
So there's going to be two different things happening here, right? Conceptually. There's a game that wasn't good, but didn't really try to do too much. And then there's a game that wasn't good, and boy, did it throw a lot of elements at me that I hated. This game, not good. Like, or it's fine. It's fine. Actually, some of the things I think worked kind of like okay. I kind of liked Jack's size in the game. Like, I thought that was interesting, especially since you were going up against bugs. Like, I liked the way his character sort of like weirdly moved. I actually thought like that the cliff detection worked better than I would have like assumed it would have for like a game like that. I didn't necessarily love that you had to use it so often, but like it wasn't bad, you know, like it was fairly forgiving in terms of like the jumping and like platforming part of it. Like, all that stuff was fine. I think as a Metroidvania, it really causes me to question like how lazy can your level design be then for at a minimum to still be considered a Metroidvania, because I would say in the amount of backtracking I had to constantly do in the PS2 version, that game was perhaps more a Metroidvania than this game was.
I mean, yeah, we'll definitely get in that, because I agree that was something that was really stuck in my craw with the latter one. And I only want to hop in here before you, Troy, because like I actually do agree with you, Louis. I felt almost the exact same way in that like I thought the actual mechanical playing of the game wasn't bad, but I thought the general level design, it's like it's kind of like the back end was great. Well, not great. The back end was fine and certainly more than passable. It was the front end. It was the user interface that was poorly designed, right? It was the levels didn't make me want to explore the different options of what I had. Didn't feel like I was ever really blocked off in a way, or
Well,
like
yeah, your
interested in
sense of
what else would
exploration
happen.
was just going the opposite way that an arrowed sign was telling you to go.
Yeah. It was
Yes.
very
Yeah,
basic.
it almost wasn't a Metroidvania. It just
Right.
never had a level end, right?
It feels to me like maybe this game started development as something a little more ambitious, where they were like, we like Metroidvanias. That's real hot on Game Boy Advance right now. Let's make this game that. And then someone was like, it has to be for kids. And so they were like, well, what if we tried to do babies first Metroidvania?
Right.
And the way they did it was not great. It kind of just, you talked about the sign pointing, the fact that every area is completely separate and you just kind of go through a different door somewhere to get to one. At least from my experience, that's how it was structured. But something about this, and I'm going to say this too as a very kind of thin defense of the PS2 game, is I just there's a part of me playing both these games that just felt kind of nostalgic for what wild swings they were, where I was just like, it's 10 plus years after the license was like initially relevant, although I guess it was seeing renewed relevance in the 2000s. That's probably why these games happened. What do you do? And like, you watching the movie, the only thing I could ever imagine making is a platformer. But both development teams for these games said, "Oh no, we're going to use Castlevania Symphony of the Night as the backdrop for one, and Devil May Cry as the other," and just decided to do it. And like now, I feel like licensed stuff is mostly just fodder for like mobile apps and shit. And it's you just don't get. It's like a shitty thing you don't get that much of anymore. And there was a part of me that was feeling a little wistful about it, even if obviously the game's still not very good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think even the eras before then too, for the Super Nintendo, like if it was a licensed movie game, it was kind of usually a shitty platformer. Like we did not need two Home Alone platformers, but we still got them, right? Like I think the Game Boy Advance is already kind of a weird era because it was such a successful handheld that like. I mean, then I don't know the math. I'd be very curious. But I think there are very few systems that had more games in their library over the same period of time that the Game Boy Advance did. There is just so many. That's why you have like 12 fucking Yu-Gi-Oh games in the span of its lifetime and shit. Like it gets wild. And to your point, like, we've been I think nicer to games that failed on ambition more in the past than this. But I do think that it was held back by what you're saying, this is for kids. I don't know if they necessarily needed to do that, and if they hadn't, both these games might have had some more bones to them.
The other thing I'll say, and this is also me alluding a little bit to the next game, which I know we're not technically talking about yet, but it didn't. If you're someone who really loves Nightmare Before Christmas, like, and you want to feel like you're playing something that's in the spirit of that movie, like that Game Boy Advance game is not really going to capture that. Maybe all the animation they did for Jack was like an attempt to do that, but it's
does the mayor not come rolling into every scene in the movie?
Well, there had already been a video game released that gave you a better experience of being in Halloween Town.
What game is that? Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Kingdom Hearts.
Did Kingdom Hearts come out before this? The one with
2002.
The first one did.
Yep.
And then the second one came out shortly after, and the combat in the second one fucking rips and really embarrasses that the PS2 game. Again, sorry, not to keep talking about it, but the PS2.
But Nightmare Before
game.
Christmas level, I think wasn't in the first one, right? It was in the.
It was in the first one.
It was in the first one. Oh, geez, I
definitely
don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was so good.
I played it pretty recently.
Just the Nightmare Before Christmas part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a save state
just that.
on my emulator.
Just prepare for this. Yeah, I think this is definitely. You know what it was? I played a lot of good Game Boy Advance games. This didn't feel like a Game Boy Advance game. This felt like a Game Gear game to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it felt very much like
I see that.
like a really good Game Gear game, which says a lot about the Game Gear. But like something about both the art style and just kind of the simplicity and the odd sizing. I think that like it wasn't zoomed out enough to make the level design work, but also any more zoomed in and you wouldn't see an enemy coming immediately. So it just felt off. Yeah. Is there anything that you guys think could have made this a better game, or at least anything you guys did like about it? I know, Lou, you were saying you thought that the mechanics felt pretty sound for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the time, like when you talk about things like this, it's like whatever gets introduced, like when we don't like something, right? These elements are almost always like a detriment. Like this game didn't lack for like different things, and like I don't know, I didn't hate any of the things that they added. Like I wasn't feeling burdened by the fact that like you had to climb up ledges like often, that you would be hanging, and like that had to, you know, be like a part of it. It's a weird thing. They could have changed it so that your jump was you know, a little easier, like more accessible, but like it was fine. Like I'm trying to think like what they could have done like in an additive sense that would have, I don't know, that would have made it like more interesting. I guess I don't necessarily have like an answer off the top of my head for that, but
I mean, I think you just have to do a platformer.
I could have used some auto saves, or at least some like if you die at certain parts, it doesn't take you all the way back to the last time that you saved. A la the first time you go in Control 0, I died in that chimney twice and got sent back like I don't know, like 5 or 10 minutes of gameplay and got furious.
Yeah, I mean that was also during an era when autosaving was not as prevalent, but
Yeah.
So it's not
the
that
zero
just
thing, it was
that game's
fine
fault,
once I got
but-
the like once I got a hang of it, and like it was an interesting little thing to do, but it had real consequences. If you just didn't die the first time you tried it, I died the first and second time I tried it, and it sent you way back, and
That's
I
wild.
was pissed.
Yeah, that stinks.
actually that reminded me, I thought that the health mechanic of just like constant, like of when you found those heads, like being like it added, like it just, you know, like
Gave you another bar.
additively
basically.
put like the same right amount of like bar onto, and then it's like even when you went down, like you could still like recover those back again. I didn't get far enough in that to like, because they're like there's 10 of them, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this game must be terrible by the end if you need all 10 of those bars to like run through. It's like I cannot
yeah, how
imagine like
bullshit is
what
it gonna
that
get?
looks like.
Yeah.
But actually, wait, quick question then about the movies, because like getting like fish bones as like a thing for, and then also sitting in
Unrelated.
the electric chair to like
Unrelated.
No,
okay.
not related to anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
unrelated.
Yeah, I think the only
Completely
thing
not,
of those,
yeah.
the only thing of those was like the pumpkin scarecrow does a spin at the beginning of the movie as part of the intro as
Yeah.
you go into Halloween Town. Like that's like that's like the only.
But that
thing
scarecrow is Jack. Like that's the thing that annoyed me even there, was like that scarecrow is Jack. He is the scarecrow on the sign that spins around. And then in this, they're like, yes, you can become that scarecrow, but also that scarecrow is the save post. I was like, no.
So this is another thing
look,
that's interesting because
At least the save post didn't have a dialogue with you every time.
Yes. Save now. Or do it again.
Well, here's the thing, like both these games had the same concept of the Pumpkin King, which is like flaming, explosive Jack Skellington. That I don't. Was that ever in the movie?
He did
They
the
both-
fire stunt right at the beginning, like as like
Okay.
the big finale for that initial like Halloween Town song that I sung
'cause
so
both
beautifully at the
just
start of this episode.
milked that idea.
And yeah, I mean, again, I guess like, what do? You're making a game on Nightmare Before Christmas. You go through the movie and you're like, all right, what's stuff in this? What could we make into a video game? That's what it felt like. Both sets of teams did with this. But yeah, like
I think none of us made it. Well, sorry, I'll save it for when we talk about the PS2
yeah, with
game.
this game, it's just. It's not the worst game I played on Game Boy Advance, but it definitely like it feels like a very middling licensed game trying to be a better game and just not getting there.
I would have felt like I overpaid. I don't think it'd be like this is awful, but I would have felt like this is not worth whatever the going rate for Game Boy Advance games at the time was.
It's the type of video
Absolutely.
game you would get from a relative who like doesn't normally buy you games.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're like,
You know,
oh,
like
thanks.
a Lord of the Rings.
auntie or
Yeah.
whatever. And then,
Which
like
is
Lord of the
a
Rings for
market.
Super Nintendo.
Which is a market and is, I think, what they're kind of partially relying on. How far, I'm assuming none of us beat it. Fine. How far along did everyone get before you said, fuck it, I'll watch a speed run online?
For the Game Boy Advance one, not very. I was getting very mad. I got past 0 going through the chimney. I like went a little bit further after we talked, but no, did not.
I got to the whatever the legally distinct version of the Batarang is that
I got that one too.
that you got right when I got about there. I was like, okay, here's another thing. Let's lightly see how this plays out, and then I was done.
Yeah. Bro?
I got about that far. I got to specifically to like the Dr. Finkelstein boss where he's being wrapped around by the big snake.
Yeah.
And I found that boss fight annoying. And I had gotten enough amusement out of either pointing the frog gun up to make Jack hump upwards, because that's definitely what he does, or use the Batarang while crouching, I think, where he does like this undulation with his body, like kind of like sensually like humping the floor. If you want to just put some of that footage in the picture-in-picture,
Will do. Absolutely.
in the video version of this, people will see what I'm talking about there.
I'll spend a good half hour just re-recording all those specific actions.
But I felt like I am assuming there isn't some power up you get 3/4 of the way through the game that like transforms the gameplay into something amazing.
No.
And I felt like I had gotten everything I needed to get out of this.
Troy, I got about as far as you did. I got that snake boss, couldn't figure out how to kill it. I was just like, all right, I've gotten a pick. I think that was still more time with it than I really gave the PS2 one to get a sense of it. That being said, I do know some power-ups you get in the Pumpkin Bong. You get the ability to morph into the Pumpkin King, and like I think you get like a fire move to move up or forward and break through stuff like that.
No, I don't think I got that.
The one thing I will say, and the one reason I think I would have kept playing, was the variety of level design, but level art assets, the variety, the looks of the various places. I felt that there was more unique colors. There was more looks. I thought the various locales you went to, despite all being very Halloween-y and Halloween Town, still felt unique and interesting in a way that almost more so than the PS2 one, which I felt, was kind of held to the standards of the movie to the point where I was like, I didn't see anything new, and it all felt very brown and grays, and that was kind of it. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I think beyond that, there wasn't not a lot of meat on these bones. I do know that at the end, Oogie Boogie does call you a pussy.
Really?
I'm sorry, what?
He straight up
What is the
calls you
line?
a pussy. Me,
Yeah.
give up, never in a million years, pumpkin pussy.
Oh, man. The early to
I
mid
had one other
2000s
thing
were
that-
quite a time.
I had one of the that is amazing.
Also, definitely never said that in the movie, although kind of
I'm
wish
going
he
to
did.
start calling people pumpkin
Can we
pussy.
get an AI Ken Page to say that line? Oh my god!
R.I.P.
Would've been
Ken
fantastic.
Page. I did like one thing from the game: the bugs that splat on the screen when you beat a boss.
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah,
remember.
that was
that's
fun.
They remind me of there was a series of Pogs when we were kids called Splat, and every single one was like a dead bug splattered. Like, yeah, I loved that. They were my favorite set, and it reminded me very much of that.
That's
Do
great.
we generously want to assume that Oogie Boogie calling Jack a pumpkin pussy was a nod to Ken Page as Broadway's original Old Deuteronomy and Cats?
Oh, yeah. That was the Easter egg they were planting.
I think they really knew how to corner that market. They really, they knew what the kids wanted.
Why does Jack put up with lock, stock, or lock, shock, and barrels like shit in all of in both like this? If this happens before the movie, why would he trust them with anything? Because he's the one who sends them to get Santa Claus. And it's like, don't tell Oogie Boogie about this. Remember that last time I had to run through all of Halloween Town with a frog gun and shoot all of them down to rescue Sally. Don't do that again. I wish he had said that in the movie.
Well, that was, I mean, one of like my. Assuming that just it being a Nightmare Before Christmas game isn't enough to get people to buy, like, I don't think people were hooked because, like, outside of a base level aesthetic, they're like, oh, I need to see text of Oogie Boogie talking, and I need to see Lock, Shock, and Bear. Why wouldn't you just pick a different holiday and like have have somebody from there be the bad guy? Like, you could have done a completely original thing.
I wonder if they weren't allowed to like create that deep like an asset in like the world created by like Tim Burton and Henry Selick or whoever.
I mean, that's honestly something that I think would have saved both these games for maybe not saved, but definitely would have held these games in a much better regard. For me, is if we got to flesh. I think even as a kid, I always wanted like, here's 5 other doorways you've shown, assuming that's the bare minimum of what you have, and there aren't other groves elsewhere with lesser days. Like, I wanted to see that shit. I wanted to see what Tim Burton's style for these other holidays would look like. I think. If they're going to do another movie, the Nightmare Before New Year's would have been, would have been great. But like an opportunity to really dive in, because that would have been a great way to flesh out both these games and give it a little more variety but I mean, to your point, Tro, they probably have had their hands tied, but at least it would have felt like I was getting something new and had a reason to be around.
Because the benefit of them, I mean, like I was talking before about kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to find things for a game because that movie's so slight, but also that movie doesn't establish a lot of rules for like its universe outside of like this kind of general framework, which means you actually ostensibly would have a lot of freedom to play with that aesthetic in other venues. So there had to be I can't imagine someone wouldn't have thought to do that, because it just, the idea of different seasons being levels just seems like video games 101. They had to have had their hands tied on some level.
Yeah.
I mean, you just pitched it. It could have been a Metroidvania where multiple worlds were smashed together, and each biome is a different holiday.
Oogie Boogie, because he's the only bad guy apparently in all these worlds, would have like used his bugs to like fuck up something that caused like the worlds to crash together, and so now you have to traverse the different seasons and I don't know, rescue the denizens of the holidays, and then probably Sally. And there's a game.
You've got a great hub world that is the Grove, that then you go through the different doors and the worlds find back ways in. Like, it gives you a lot to work with.
The Hinterlands.
Is that what it was called?
The Hinterlands.
Yep. That's where the doors are, in the Hinterlands.
Which, according to the movie, you can just wander into if you walk long enough, because that's all that happens.
You can wander into it, and yet there is the door to your town there.
Again, doesn't, if you think about it for more than a few minutes, it really starts to
magic.
It all becomes Oogie Boogie without the sheet on and just falls apart.
Anything else to say just about the Game Boy Advance game here that you haven't gotten off your chest yet?
This is just going to sound like maybe a little condescending, but at least it controls okay, and it looks all right, and it like functions in the ways that it's mostly intended, even if it doesn't do a great job. I feel like we've talked about some games on here that like barely function or just really don't do what's intended, and this is what they set out to make, and it basically works, even if there's a pretty low ceiling on how good that can be.
It's honestly, it's the same thing that I said when we talked about both of the Aladdin games, right? Like, because you and I ranked the Super Nintendo one higher than the Genesis one. And it's a game where it's like, you can play it, you can get better at it, right? Like, the core mechanics work, and it might not be super exciting, but like, but it's there, and it's like, and if what you want to do is play like a game of escalating difficulty and feel like that you learning the game and those decisions like matter in like getting better at it, like this game does that, and like that's the kindest thing that I'll that I'll say about it, is that like if you wanted to like try and like speed run through it, you could learn how to do it, right? You know, like to get there. There's something workable and I guess kind of like skill based like about it that I think is intentionally designed in the game that
I will also say my defense of the Genesis Aladdin is mostly vibes based and is basically just because it really is just like, oh, well, I just like how this looks and feels and sounds.
Sure.
Even
No, right,
if
right.
technically as a game, it doesn't hang together quite as well as the Super Nintendo version of that.
That's totally fine, right? Like, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way when
Right.
it comes to basing these games, but this for me felt very similar to the Super Nintendo Aladdin in that, like,
Right.
it was clean but unexciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
The
really
frog
think
gun is apples to the to Aladdin's sword and the soul robbers.
Oh God.
But the problem is I feel like with a property like Nightmare Before Christmas, you want it to be vibes first, gameplay second, almost. Like you want to capture the feeling and like how that movie looked as well as you can. And even with the power of the PS2 and certainly not the Game Boy Advance, they just couldn't capture it. And yeah.
'Tis the holiday season, and of course, everyone is pushing you to buy presents, gifts, cards, whatever. It's look, I know people love this holiday, but let's call commercialism what it is, and that is what the holidays are all about. So I thought I'd join in on the fun, guys. If you haven't checked out the kaijulounge.com, you may notice up at that top bar there's a little thing that says shop. Well, guess what? I'm doing Kaiju Lounge merch because I got to start making money somehow. You're not paying for this podcast, and we're working on sponsors. But in the meantime, your boy's got a kid to pay for, and the best way to support the channel, to support the Kaiju Lounge, if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, is to head over to thekaijulounge.com and hit on the shop link. We've got all sorts of things. I say all sorts of things. We've got a bunch of t-shirts. We have our World's Greatest Gamer t-shirt for the tournament we throw, as well as a TGI World's Greatest Gamer based on the old TGIF logo from the 90s that your boy grew up with. We also got some generic Kaiju Lounge and Stay Cool, Stay Hip, Stay Heavy shirts, as well as the Kaiju Lounge mug. That's right. You may have seen this guy showing up in all the videos here at my desk. Well, it's not just for me to sip and drink through. It's for you guys as well. There's also a Stay Cool, Stay Hip, Stay Heavy mug. We're going to try to add more stuff. It's kind of fun to come up with ideas and designs. Who knows what other things we've got going on. I should, and maybe I will, throw together a Best Game of All Time t-shirt and see how that goes. There's a lot of fun to be had. And more importantly, if you're giving a gift to anyone, the gamer in your life, or even your host who you love oh so much, then, think of buying a t-shirt, buying a mug as a gift to me, if that helps. It probably doesn't. Buy it for your friends. Don't buy it for me. They are very comfortable. They are very soft shirts. The mugs are hearty. I've been drinking out of this for a while, and everything still tastes just as good as the day I poured it. So, if that sounds up your alley and you want to throw a little bit our way, that is a great way to support this podcast. If you're liking it so far, then show the world you like it too. And show us, the world, and yourself, some love. Now back to the podcast. Then let's move on to our second game, our sequel, if you will. The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge is a 2004 action-adventure game in the vein of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, also developed by Tosei for the PS2 and Xbox, but unlike the previous game, this was published by none other than Capcom, who arguably put this style of gameplay on the map. We'll probably talk about that soon. Taking place a year after the film, Jack is once again disillusioned with Halloween, leaving the town for new frights. While gone, Locke, Shock, and Barrel revive their old master, who takes over Halloween Town, and is up to Jack to return the town to normal. Unlike the GBA, there is a much stronger focus on combat as you revisit and explore the famous locales from the movie, all while listening to rewritten but familiar songs from the film's soundtrack. Interestingly enough, the game was able to bring back the voice actors for Jack and Oogie to record all new dialogue, but that charm was not enough to push the game further in the critics' eyes, as its reception was only slightly worse than its GBA counterpart. Guys, moving on to the PS2, I want to start with you, Tro, as someone who is a big fan of these character action games, and I know have played through a number of them. This one holds up pretty close, right?
Oh yeah, it holds up pretty close if you compare it only to Devil May Cry 2, which is easily the worst Devil May Cry game. But almost, even though it's they, with development times being what they are, they were probably trying to copy the original Devil May Cry. It definitely feels like the second one, if I'm to compare it to anything in the genre that it occupies, because it's like the combat's just
It's bad.
You gotta
It's so bad.
you gotta buy a upgrade just to get like a basic combo. Before that, you're just kind of like doing like a little wet towel slap with your and like you could do the big move where you grab people, and like that feels a little more satisfying to do, but it's just not great combat. You can't string those things together. You can't like doing the weird I am the Pumpkin King spin throw thing doesn't feel satisfying to link to. It's weirdly strict about your combat multiplier, and like it does not stay like it doesn't fuck around in terms of like pressing you to keep your combos going.
Well,
and
except you can get hit in the middle of it and it continues, which I think is crazy.
You don't lose it if you get hit. That had to have been like, kids are supposed to play this. Like let's at least not do that. But it's those games are like punishing and repetitive in certain ways, because the whole joy of the game is that you master the combat by the end of it, and you need to like want to be good at the combat because it's fun to play to stick with one of these games. And yeah, Oogie's Revenge, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Oogie's Revenge fails miserably at doing that.
I'm sorry. Were you not using your spin block enough? Was that your problem?
So you mean the move where he like twirls around?
Yeah.
I will say linking into that was the only satisfying combo thing I figured out in the game, and it didn't always work. If it always worked, I would feel a lot better about it. But that was like that was the one thing where I was like, see, if you just like put a little more time into like making you connect moves together, like kids will figure that shit out. You don't have to make it so dumbed down, and it's just. I also really
have to ask you, as somebody who plays these games. Usually in these games, like I feel like I'm so like Dark Souls or like Elden Ring or even like Hades. Like I imagine when I do a roll or I do a jump, I should be able to avoid some amount of damage as I like get out of the way. His jump roll in this is complete dog shit.
First of all,
nothing.
Weird that he has no jump. Why can't you jump?
Yeah.
Jack jumps plenty of times in the movie. Like, what is the soul robber not anchoring him to the ground? But like,
he jumps. He does like backflips. He like
he's like very
things, and he's so
that
agile,
weak ass
so
dodge
moving.
move that doesn't actually help you dodge anything is not also that's like the Bayonetta games are all about dodging, where you get your like special devil trigger mode, super mode by dodging at the right time. And so like you can make that aspect of the game into a fun mechanic as well, but that's just another ball that this game drops pretty significantly. To say the least.
I'll be honest, I didn't realize you even could. I knew you could upgrade things. I thought it just made shit stronger. I never got enough coins to do that. Even if I played for a while, I still didn't think. It like took forever to have enough coins because it starts off so expensive. I didn't realize it gave you a combo. I just assumed it upped the strength. And I was thinking, like, why would you not even give a basic like triple triangle or whatever combo from
with an
the
upgrade?
Start?
You get a basic 3-hit combo, and
okay.
It makes things a little better in terms of like and the third hit is kind of like a little sweep, so you can catch more than one enemy in it, and that helped it. It at least gives you something to work with.
But to your point, no, it was way too expensive.
It
was insanely
it was
really
too expensive, and like you should have the basic combo should be at the start. Like that's what's going to make people play, and then you add to it. Then you add a fourth hit. Then you add whatever. Like I think imagine the original God of Wars. If it didn't start you off with some sort of combo, that if it was just that one attack over and over again, you wouldn't play past the first level. Like it truly, that combo is what makes most of these games, because it's just the bare basics. But before we get more into the nitty gritty, Pat, Louie, I want top level thoughts from you guys.
You didn't list that Paul Rubens and Glenn Shaddix are also back for their voices.
Did Paul Rubin also come back for that?
Yep, Paul Rubens also
shit,
back.
okay.
And the voice of Dr. Finkelstein is not the original actor, but it is the actor of Wacko from Animaniacs. And the voice of Shock and Sally, which was originally Catherine O'Hara, is now the character that played Lil and Phil on Rugrats. If you couldn't much hear that in any of the Shock scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
great.
I had to Google it immediately and was like, oh yeah, no, it totally is her. But yeah, I mean, the thing I was going to say earlier too, you were talking about like different outfits, different things and stuff like that. I'm sure none of us made it to the point of unlocking costumes, but there were multiple costumes for Jack, and they were really cool. You could have an all-white tuxedo with like a white top hat. There was a thespian Jack where he was dressed like William Shakespeare. There was a sleepy Jack, which was like him with like the classic like snooze cap and stuff. And it's like that should have been the power-ups. Like that should have been Dancing Jack and whatever. Like you should have absolutely tied these things to like just new stuff. And it wouldn't even matter if he just went to Easter World. Like that would have been enough. Like It's just like, just give us some new and fun stuff. Like, but it was of an era where I feel like they only, in IP games in particular, they really only retread. So
yeah. I also think, you could only get those if you got the trophies for beating some of those levels.
Yeah, to get.
And I don't know how the fuck you would get those good rankings, and definitely not on the first try because you don't know where the fuck to go. I feel like I did great. I did fine in the combat, but I would just get lost because it wasn't clear where I was supposed to go.
Yeah. The map only shows you where you are, and like it doesn't
very early on. It shows you where your objective is also once, and therefore for the rest of the game of me playing it, I was like, oh, okay, I'll pull up, and then the map is only ever where you are.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when you're finding the hanging men for the hanging tree, you have to find them in order. So I had already been in places where they were.
I noticed
and
that too.
I thought, I was like, oh, well, I was already there, so I probably shouldn't go. I spent 45 minutes on that chapter. And I got a D rank on that on time. I got, of course, an S in combat and an S in combo or whatever, but
never doubted you for a second.
Yeah, and then I got a C for the whole thing, and then everybody boos me, and it's like, well, fuckers, I couldn't find the little shits. Why are you timing me?
Really tedious.
Yeah. Actually, I found them, but I didn't realize that after you did that, you had to go back towards the beginning and go to the gate there. I thought I had to keep moving forward and was like, I could not. So I just spent a lot of time running around trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go next.
Yep.
Also, if you want to get a good time on your mission score, you have to be very careful about when you use the store, because instead of it being an option between levels, you have to like hoof it back to the store to get your upgrades once you've collected enough money for them.
Yeah,
and it's such
I
a pain
want
in the
to talk
ass,
about
it takes
that
forever.
too. But Lou, I didn't want to cut you off if they get a chance to talk shit as well. So why don't you?
This game sucks. I mean, to the points that you guys make, I don't understand why any of the elements that why would you rate people on like how quickly you can finish a level when your level design is awful? Why do you have a combo counter when you can like get hit and it keeps going? Like the emphasis that you are putting on the game are all flawed, like in like such like insane ways. And like I was telling Petro before we recorded, I was like, I did not spend much time with this game because unlike games where it's just like, okay, like this is poorly done, but like I can understand what it is they're trying to get me to do, I actively felt like this game was just wasting my time. Like I felt like that was even part of it. Like the design where it's like they're not showing you like where to go or like having to do things in exactly the right order to figure it out. Like I think they just wanted you to have to spend more time playing through like any part of this level than like you actually need to do, like right from beginning to end if you know everything. And that pissed me off. Like that was trash. Not to mention also, again, I didn't remember much about The Nightmare Before Christmas. I fucking hate musicals. Outside of the aforementioned Cats featuring Ken Page.
But
And like
let's
I
talk-
was like, I'm not here for these songs. I didn't like. I don't know. They didn't. None of it stuck with me. Like when I was younger, and it was up, and to hear them all like repeated again or clunkily like parts inserted like midstream during these fights. I was like, I hated it. Like it was all bad.
You weren't tired of hearing "whoa, whoa" for the first Oogie boss fight.
And also,
I mean-
Patrick, you had played this game before.
Yes, I remember watching you play it when we were in
Oh,
college.
wait, really?
Yes.
Yeah, because Michael and I will always make the joke of Soul Robber
Robber.
or
Merry Christmas. Yeah.
So, like, my question is, why would you even suggest us doing this again? You had firsthand knowledge of how bad this all was.
You know, nostalgia's a hell of a drug. I don't know. I don't know what you want from me.
Also, I blame certain recent political events for being like, I want to talk about silly bullshit instead of delving into the much deeper subject we're supposed to do for an episode.
This still
Extremely fair.
it feels emotionally better, even though it
Yeah.
was worse in every other possible way. God, there's so much we've touched on that I want to get into, but let's because it's top of mind right now. Let's talk about that music, because I genuinely think I would have enjoyed this more if it was just not even original songs, but just like background tracks that sound reminiscent of, but weren't quite the songs. The fact that it was like re-lyriced, and then every time we got into a fight, they're playing the very kind of not on, I guess, on theme, but not really for a fight music. None of these were fight songs, right? None of these felt right as even the more upbeat version of Sally's song for the second boss. It doesn't feel right in any way.
Oh, they
And,
were all
fully
ballads.
took me
Like,
out.
yeah, right. I don't know what was going on. Like, I don't know what anybody was thinking.
I have to say that so much of this game was like a hair away from like me liking it, and to your like, if it had been just the actual songs from the movie, I probably would have liked it more. If it had been, yes, thematically similar but different songs, I would have liked it all right. Because it kind of gave me like, I didn't love the like rhythm section part of it, but like the way it like did the 5 or 6, 5, 4, and then like zoomed in, and then there was suddenly dancing in the spotlight. It reminded me a lot of like Parappa the Rapper or something like that, where it's like, I don't know, it took you to a different place. It gave you this like little like game view. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that it like was a different way to defeat the boss than just like constantly chipping away at its health. But yeah, it just like it didn't land. It was like so close and it didn't land.
So it's basically, Patrick, like what we were saying before about like having to like have a game evoke the spirit of what it's adapting. Like they are trying to do that in this with the use of the songs and however they rework them. And my little bit singing at the top of this episode was reflective of what happened when that battle music got stuck in my head and I didn't know the lyrics to the song. So that's basically what was running around my brain for the past week. And it's a shame that it's not executed better, because I was also kind of charmed at first by the like, oh, you build up your music bar and then like you do an extra dramatic bit of the song to do damage instead of just hitting them, because it is weird that it's just like, I kept thinking of Oogie's Revenge of like, what if this was just the sequel, like a movie sequel to Nightmare Before? And like the advertisement would just be like, this time Jack kicks ass. And it's just like, we remember what you all liked from the first movie.
Well, I mean, I feel like they had to do something since you fight Lock, Shock, and Barrel in this, like, right? And like the end of the battle can't be, well, Jack just whooped the shit out of those kids.
Yep, killed those children. No, but go ahead, Noah.
Did you guys like that like breakdown? Because I'll be honest, I much like the music itself, it's like I felt it just was kind of forced in there, like this weird rhythm game that just felt out of the blue. Like I don't know, I felt that was less satisfying to me.
I think it was a fun idea.
It was a quick time event.
Yeah.
It was a quick time event.
It was a fun idea, but you're right. It was done poorly.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm in Michael's camp. Like I could have liked something similar to it, but I didn't like what was in there.
I would just like to bookmark this part of the conversation right now so that when we get to the scores, we can see what Patrick does when he gave God of War, a game that has pretty decent QuickTime events in it.
That's true.
Hey,
this
miserably low score.
No. This was not QuickTime. This was like rhythm light, because the buttons were to the song. They were the same pattern, and you could see them coming and shit like that. It was not, let me break my fucking thumb hitting X to open the mouth of a Hydra. Like, fuck God of War for its QuickTime events.
So it was
this
less
is going to
cool.
get a better score than God of War.
So these were worse than God of War's QuickTime events in the sense that it was more arduous to perform, especially once you got past like the second or third boss of the game. And I was just like, I'm not even looking at anything that's happening behind these buttons because I have to focus so hard on just getting this combo.
Oh, that is true too. And that's actually true of so many things where it's like, any rhythm game, like Guitar Hero is good because you are only looking at the notes. You're not.
Yes.
You don't give a shit about the crowd or the people on stage.
Right.
Maybe your friend sitting in the room watching you play might look at that, but that's not the point of it. This was a little bit annoying where it's like, I kind of want to look at like these like what's happening, but I cannot. I need to focus on what's coming up.
Ruthless.
Yeah.
The way it scrolls through. But like, and so the God of War ones are at least easier to perform. But I agree, Patrick, that those are intrusive in a way that at the very least, like if you really wanted to wail on the boss for a long time, I guess you could just ignore the meter. Not that sounds like a lot of fun. Or I don't know.
Yeah,
it
since
really
we brought
is
up QuickTime
close.
events. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go back to what you originally said, Patrick. It is just a hair away from being good in so many ways, but.
It's
Sometimes
so
it's a few
close.
hairs.
It's very fair. Yeah, maybe a whole head of hair.
It's a full fucking wig from being good game.
Has anybody else here played Star Wars Outlaws yet?
No, I've not. I want to, but I haven't yet.
It is fun. There's a QuickTime event sequence in it that I got so fucking mad at. It's when you get snacks with your little like pet. It has you go through a QuickTime event. There's no purpose to it. There's nothing bad about to happen, anything like that. I failed feeding my pet a snack for a solid 10 minutes because I couldn't figure out what it was trying to tell me to do. And it's a QuickTime event that's like, hey, instead of looking at what's happening, this cute little scene with like you and your pet, you're gonna have to focus on, an A button turned to the side or like a swirling motion on the toggle stick to keep engaged with the game. Fuck you. Like, let me just watch this little vignette or whatever, and I blame God of War for that. And if I could, I'd lower my God of War vote right now. It would get a lower. It wouldn't even be funny anymore. I'd just give it a 1.
I think like what you described is the most like Pat would enjoy this feature thing of feeding a pet in a game, but also Pat is going to hate the
Star
game.
Wars Outlaws, and you're choosing to feed a pet.
That is very much like this is what Pat wants to do, and this is how we keep Pat from doing it. This is like very hyper specific.
Have you played this new Tamagotchi style game called Star Wars Outlaw? Everybody.
A lot of production value that they put into this.
It's like how you unlock certain like behaviors in the pet. It's cute. Again, it's like a perfectly fine.
I play Sonic Adventure 2
like,
for the
sequence.
chows only.
The chow garden. That's what
Don't get me started on those chows. Those chows were fun. That was the best use of the fucking Dreamcast little VMUs.
Yeah. Getting back to the game, unfortunately. One thing I kept thinking, I want to talk about going back to like the rating system, and we talked a little bit even in the other one about the unnecessary backtracking here. I couldn't help but think every time I started a new level, why they didn't just start me at the beginning of that new level instead of having to find it. If level 3 was at the graveyard, I should start at the graveyard.
It's probably literally because in Devil May Cry, that's how levels go. You do
That's dumb.
Most of Devil May Cry, because it was supposed to be Resident Evil, most of it takes place in like a castle, and then there's a little surrounding area you go out into for a few missions. But therefore, it always has the style of you went to a place for that mission, and the levels were better signposted for the most part to get you to that destination. And then once the next level started, you just started right where you left off. So I'm almost certain they were like, our game's like Devil May Cry, like we're going to structure it like this, and this is how these games work. And then, but it's not well designed, and so you just have to run slowly back through a boring thing.
So as someone who's not played a Devil May Cry game, does it work in those games? Because even that way you're describing it, I'm seeing like get rid of the level format. Just let it be open world-ish and just be like, all right, you've completed this, come back, instead of it having to be like, you're going to stop down the game to say, all right, chapter 2 complete, and not then, if you're going to stop down, why wouldn't you reset in some way?
Future games, I think, start to streamline the level design a bit more, where it's more clearly mission to mission, and you're just doing like what is the beginning and end of a level, rather than you going around a big location. But the first game, again, because its DNA was so in Resident Evil, like it was still structured like that.
Got it. Because also, if you're going to rank me on these levels, then why are you going to? It's like, you're going to time me on my race, but you're going to include my time to get back to the start line to begin the race as part of my timing. It's kind of obnoxious.
Design the game where it leads you more naturally to that location if that's what the effect you're trying to go for.
I have a fun fact for you. The end cutscenes are part of the level. Because I had an end cutscene start, I walked away to go and cook something to eat for dinner, came back, hit enter, or A or whatever, and then it went to the finale scene, and I'd been playing that level for like 48 minutes, even though I know for a fact I had actually focused and gotten that one done in about 10 minutes. So I was like, oh, great, cool. The only time I probably would have gotten an A rank in time, I completely bombed it.
Patrick, did you ever beat this game when you originally owned it, or no? I don't remember you getting all the way through it, but I
didn't beat it this time. I did watch a playthrough. I think I had to have gotten pretty close to the end, because the end is Christmas Town, spoiler alert. And I swear we made it that far when I played, but I don't remember finishing it.
Feel like that. I think I remember seeing you in a Christmas Town level, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I wish
using
I had
that
just
sweet
finished
Santa ability. It's a great effect.
Merry
What a fun way to engage with the game. You just throw.
I know the
and then
final
hope the enemy
boss
runs
is
into
like
it.
is like a giant-sized Oogie that you're fighting off in some way. It's like a big multi-story Oogie.
So you just got a lot of bugs.
A lot of bugs unraveling in there.
How many of the bosses are Oogie in this game?
Like 4. Shadow Oogie, Shadow Oogie again.
You fight that big spider that breaks up into little spiders.
Oh, is that the same one from the Pumpkin King? Do we think is that a hat tip to the prequel with the giant spider?
I love when they have their connected continuity.
It's a recurring character who just never showed up in the movie. It's the one part of the franchise.
Actually, but you're totally right. I think it is the same design, isn't it?
Those games came out around the same time, right?
Yeah, they came out. I think they were alongside each other basically in the same way that a lot of games would be both console and handheld. They're just two very wildly different games.
Wouldn't be surprised if there was a little sharing of homework there to meet certain deadlines.
And even if it's two different publishers, it's the same developer.
Exactly.
Which I think there's also some of the DNA in that as well.
It is. It's a slightly different spider. The one in the GBA has stripes, and the one in PS2 has a spiral on his back. So there you go.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing the deep dive into this game that none of us are willing to do.
Yep.
What did this game do well? What do you think this game actually succeeded on?
I'm ready.
Go for
it. Chris Sarandon, Ken Page, Paul Rubens, even Phil and Lil, and Glenn Shadow. I mean, like, it was cool to hear them say their voice, like, talk and, like, have the voices. And I will say, like, even from the, like, semi-compressed audio of the time, like, things sounded good. I think the Hinterlands looked really badass. I don't know if any of us made it to the Hinterlands this time, but like it was actually a really cool art style that I don't feel like we saw very much in the PS2 era, and we see it all the time now. And like, we're in a drawing
very sketchy,
or whatever.
Right? I feel like it was very very hand-drawn style, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every review says that that's the absolute worst part of the game in terms of navigation.
Well, it all looks the same. It all looks the absolute same.
It's like the Legend of Zelda, like the forest, right? It's like you're walking and hopefully you the right spot.
You have to go in the right direction, exactly.
I did like that the upgraded enemies had the Oogie's casino like aesthetic, the bright blue, green, and like pink or orange day glow effect with the like dark.
Yeah.
In the original
think about
movie,
that.
when he's in the like casino parlor and the lights get shut off, everything has that like very cool,
You're
like
right.
Very
It does.
black light look,
glow
right.
in the dark thing going on.
I think at that point I was realizing, Oogie's barely been in this movie, and he's supposed to be the
Yeah.
antagonist. They really don't show him until like that end sequence starts, essentially.
Yeah. He's the shadow on the moon,
Yeah.
and he is like, you just hear him mostly. You never see him until the end. But otherwise, I mean, the thing that sucks is that it like didn't. As a sequel, it should have been like, I get to see more of like this world and these characters. But instead, they were like, what if we reset everything? Because at the end of the movie, Jack's like, hey, I'm going to like appreciate Halloween. And Dr. Finkelstein is like, hey, I'm going to make a partner instead of being, maybe a ragdoll sex trafficker or whatever he was doing.
Right. So the exact thing he
like
did in the movie.
everybody like
Yeah.
kind of changes a little bit at the end of the movie, or at least if they do, they're like going to try to be better. And then this game is just like, nah, none of that's stuck. Like, fuck it.
Well, yeah, because now Dr. Finkelstein's like evil because his brain got switched out or
Yes.
whatever. So you had to do that boss fight where you like hit his head open, and then did anyone here do that this time around?
Yep.
I watched it, but I did not get to it.
It's not very fun.
No.
not a great
that
fight.
would have been the one fun part of this game, really.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's so many undodgeable attacks in every boss battle and every fight. There's just so much shit where it's like you can't dodge out of the way, you can't move, and to get in close enough to attack, you have to get hit. So it's just like,
And I wanted that upgrade so badly, so I spent so much time in the combat just skittishly like hanging back and just going
Oh, yeah.
like over and over again.
There was
To
a
get
time
the
where I
stupid
was stuck.
multiplier up high enough.
yeah.
There was a
Did you
time I
reach
was stuck
Pumpkin
where I
King
would-
ever?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
also
There's times I was stuck
fun to
where
do.
I would take out a bunch of these skeletons somewhere in the graveyard. I'd take them out, not sure where to go, walk just kind of right off screen a bit, and then come back, and they would all appear again. And the respawn was fucking awful. And it was
Yep.
like a 5 or 6 of the green skeletons. So they were all already hard to kill and super hard. And I did not get an upgrade because it was too goddamn expensive. Oh God. Well, we were talking about what we liked about the game.
Yeah, the other thing I liked, I did like the call out of how like shriekified and getting to the Pumpkin King the first time was really fun.
It's like the nicest version of the Killer Instinct voice.
Right. And that's the exact thing that's also in all the Devil May Cry games is the like style meter, and it goes like dangerous or like come on or whatever, as it goes from like D, C, B, A, etc.
Totally groovy.
Yeah, it's always like smoking sexy style is like the best one where it's like triple S.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, I guess. Sorry, we're still talking about what we like about
Things
this
we
game.
like.
We're struggling. We're scraping the barrel, so to speak.
I mean, I kind of I said it when I was talking about the Game Boy Advance one, but like, I just like that this exists. I like that they were like, that someone decided, let's make a Devil May Cry game that's Nightmare Before Christmas. This game's no good, and also you compare it inevitably to Kingdom Hearts, which even the first one is better combat than this.
Right. And better musical parts than
Yes.
Yeah.
It does better with the music parts.
Better atmosphere. I felt like traveling around Halloween Town in Kingdom Hearts is more interesting. Less Halloween Town in that, but it's more interesting to move around and see that interpretation than it was to see this.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, it's just, I don't know. All three, like these two games and the movie, Oogie Boogie's the only bad guy. There's no other bad guys in Halloween Town. There's no other bad guys in other towns that.
You have to save the mayors of the other town, and you never see them. They're just in sacks behind bars.
I hate that. I hated
so
that.
dumb.
Right. But again, that's got to be some kind of workaround to maybe they weren't allowed to make designs for those characters.
Right.
Or they said, we don't have time, just generate 7 sacks. This deadline's too tight.
Louis, what about you? Anything?
I mean, I guess I could say that the act of like slamming the enemy with like the soul robber was sort of satisfying in that way that like like doing the Teenage Mutant Turtles in Time, like slamming like a foot soldier back and forth was vaguely satisfying.
In that amazing game that you love.
And that game that I don't think was overrated on this podcast. Right. Yeah, that's about it.
I mean, I think I'm with you there. Like, I wanted to hear other people's opinions, but like, and the truth is, I don't think. I mean, even when I look at this, actually, I don't know. We've had a lot of games I think I've liked enough that I will probably put this pretty low. But I don't think, it's not horribly unplayable. It's just not good, right? And I think I will say one positive: the atmosphere and the way they presented it in the PS2 reminded me a lot of American McGee's Alice. Did you guys ever play that? I think it was primarily a PC game.
Oh yeah,
I know about it. But
Yeah, I never played it, but yeah.
That's a game that I think I've revisited, not recently, but like in the last 10 years or so. That I'm not sure gameplay wise it holds up, but I do think atmosphere wise, even of the era it came out in, and it's kind of like simpler graphics, does. There were elements of this that felt closer to that than maybe the stop motion-esque Tim Burton style.
Yeah,
and I think that was fine. I think actually I kind of like that. It felt there was parts of it that actually felt very nostalgic. The way light shimmered unnaturally through Jack's window felt very PS2 era graphics, and I think there was a little bit of that like hit a warm fuzzy for me. Same with these sort of like collection aspect, because you don't really have games that do the kind of like unlock this collectible and this outfit and this stuff. It's not really the same as I feel like games were really heavy on collectibles for the longest time in order to keep you playing. Now it's just about Xbox achievements, and that's not nearly as interesting. So that's just the old man me yelling at clouds. I want to go into very quick rapid fire round of we haven't done this since the last Disney game we played, of a who wore it best. And we're going to start with Zero. Who wore it best? The PS2, the Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance. I would rather play
Really?
crappy Space Harrier than do what you do with Zero in Oogie's Revenge.
Yeah. I'll give it GBA.
It was really just about how bad was the GBA. Was it bad enough to wish you hadn't done it, or was it still bad?
No, I mean, I did get really pissed at that part, but honestly, I still like how you could control him and he flew through something instead of just like vaguely being. Because when it said you have to find him to find the next objective, I was like, oh, thank God. And then he just he fucks off. Yeah. And then you can hear him barking, and heaven help you if you go around the wrong side of a wall, because you can still hear him barking just as loud, but you cannot get to him.
Yeah. Drives you crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I bet the Game Boy Advance one wouldn't have been as frustrating, Patrick, if it had just spawned you at the start of that sequence when you died, rather than sending you losing your save.
I didn't die at those, but like
I
could only imagine that's dumb as hell. Like it should have started at the beginning of that whole area,
so bad.
or just not even at the beginning of that, just like right in front of that thing as Jack. So you can go somewhere else and come back to it.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, weapons. Do we like the Soul Robber or the Frog Gun Batarang Pumpkin Bomb of the GBA?
I like the potential of the Soul Robber more.
Yeah, I'm gonna say PS2.
Yeah, I mean it's it's their take on the God. I mean, did this come out before God of War or after?
It was after, I think. 2004, 2005. I think it was after.
There's 2004 was before.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure God of War was 2005. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
God of War was 2005.
Oh, this was 2004. Yeah, so yeah.
Wow,
the
okay.
Metroidvania, the Game Boy Advance was 2005.
I was going to say that they were doing their version of the God of War weapon, but I guess God of War ripped off Oogie's Revenge.
Another reason to give God of War a lower.
Right.
Yeah, therefore can't possibly be a better game. It's not great combat, but it's still that's not to say that the combat's any good in the Game Boy Advance one either. It doesn't feel good to shoot things with either of the weapons that I got, and I was obviously too busy making Jack do sexually suggestive things on screen rather than engage with the gameplay. So I'd have to give it to Oogie's Revenge, but that's like taking my trophy out of one pile of poop and putting it in a smaller pile of poop. Still not good.
Fair enough. Save points. Do we like the idea of the man in the hat or the scarecrow?
Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Mr. Hyde better because he's a character. I don't like that you have to do the dialogue with him every single time. And I finally figured out, because I pressed start thinking that would skip through it, and instead just cancels the interaction and sends you back into the game.
Triangle.
You have to go talk to him again.
Triangle was the way to go.
Yeah. So once I learned how to skim through the dialogue, that helped. But why would you do it like that? Just he said the thing to you once. You know he's the save point. Go save at him.
Well, the crazy thing to me was that he says something different the very first time you save with him, and then after that he just goes, "When Oogie's monsters are around, I have to go and hide." And it's like, yeah, I get that. You don't have to tell me again. I still liked that more than the spinning scarecrow, so I'm saying PS2.
Louis?
Boy, right. This is a real
Sophie's choice, I know.
You're right. Yeah, if I hated all of my children.
Can you kill all of them?
Yeah. I guess I'll give it to. Functionally, I'm gonna go GBA with this one because of the dialogue thing. Right. The fact that the scarecrow is in fact Jack is right nonsensical and dumb, but like it's not.
Right.
It's not taking up your time. So
it's still a piece of iconography. It makes sense as a save point.
Sure.
It does what it needs to do. It does that weird kind of blackout fade out, fade in every time. I don't really know why that's necessary, but it's still not as cumbersome as doing the conversation.
Right.
I have to assume that's a technical thing, that it has to like shut the screen off for it to save or something.
It must,
I feel like that's not uncommon, but like it was weird. Two more. First off, locales or representation of locales. Who wore it best?
The tricky thing is I think the PS2 game tries better, like does a better job at emulating the look of the movie to some degree, but I think especially when you just consider what graphics were like at the time, like it's just very muddy and kind of repetitious looking. Even when you get to things like Dr. Finkelstein's lab, which at least like starts to change the environment a little bit, it's still not, it's still not that colorful or whimsical as it should be.
The lack of palette, really, I'm going to give it to GBA just because I think PS2 missed the mark a lot further than GBA did.
Better, you're saying better to like try to reinterpret than try to just.
I think PS2 could have done a lot more, and then like the percentage of fulfillment of like what really good would have looked like is a lot further for me. It's on PS2 than it was GBA.
Got it.
You know what I just realized is I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was just quickly going to say I'm going to give it to PS2, but it's because they had Christmas Town, they had the Hinterlands, and even though the Christmas Town was the last level, which is so frustrating because they don't show it off earlier, and the Hinterlands was very confusing. They both looked great. And it did look like the movie, which I think was a plus. And Halloween Town looked like the movie enough. But, yeah, it was confusing and easy to get lost. Go ahead, Tro.
I lost my train of thought, so I don't.
Shit. I was trying to go fast, so you didn't.
Well, let's see how you feel then about the last one, which is music. Who wore it best?
Oh, GBA, because I didn't play. I played that on mute, so by a
silence
long walk, GBA wins.
I'm going to argue that the GBA famously had kind of crappy sounds, and so even like the Super Nintendo remakes didn't have as good music. I PS2, look, do you get sick of those songs after a while? Do you not like the musical segments?
Not after a while.
But
it did not take long.
After we're playing for hours.
After Fight 2, I feel like.
No, I at least they were trying to do something. They were trying to evoke the spirit of the film more, however misguided the application of it was. I got to give it to PS2.
Same. PS2. Same reasons. It's true.
Let's get into the reviewing. If it's your first time here, this is how it works. We're going to go ahead and give each game a score between 0 and 10 that we could only give once in perpetuity. meaning that if, let's say, someone wants to give a game a 6.9420 and then suddenly decide to change it to a 4.2069, once that has been locked in, you can't use that incredibly funny and hilarious number on any other game ever again in the future of this podcast. You have used that ranking, and it goes on forever to be locked in on the list. Once we have all taken those averages and see where the game lands, we have one chance to change one score on one game. Go ahead and bring it up or down on the list as we see fit. After that, it is locked in forever. Forever. Locked until I come up with some funnier, goofier, or more ridiculous idea to move it around. This is the list. Guys, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this right now. We have, I don't even know how many games we have on this thing anymore. I'm losing count. At the bottom of the list, our bottom 5 are Tin Head, Glover, Omicron, the Nomad Soul, Daydreaming Davy, and E.T. for Atari. E.T. having a 1.888. At the top.
Oh, that was 5-1. I was like, Tin Head's the worst game.
Yeah, no. Yeah, 5 to 1.
Sorry,
5 to 1.
Sorry.
I had a moment too where I was like, wait, Daydream Davy? Doing so high up.
At the top, our top 5, working our way up. So, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Mario World, Elden Ring, and Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild with an 8.714. Guys, let us kick things off with the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Pumpkin King for the GBA. Louis, I'm going to start with you. What are you giving this game?
Yeah, I'm going to give... I'm going to say like a 4.2096. I'm just going to use all of use the numbers from Patrick's old.
Outside of how great that is, and nice. Why a 4.2096? Especially when you're looking at what we have on the list here.
I mean, it hovers around other things that I would say aren't particularly like enjoyable, but like function as games. Yeah, I mean, I likened it to the Aladdin SNES, Tin Head, Nights into Dreams, somewhat like all around that same way. Like they're games that I understand, even if I don't find them particularly interesting, and will never revisit them.
So you do think it's a worse game than Nights into Dreams?
I suppose there's like a part of me that would like need to go back to not need to, but like would be curious to be like, can I get it again? Was I missing something before? Right. Can I now like do this thing again? There's not enough originality in the GBA Nightmare Before Christmas. I've seen what they've done better in other things, so it's fine, but that's about it.
Okay. Tro, I'm going to go to you next. What do you think?
For the Game Boy Advance, Nightmare Before Christmas prequel, Nightmare Before Christmas, the Pumpkin King, I'm going to give a 4.4448.
4.4448. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why?
Because I was looking at the numbers here and I was like, I think this might be worse than Nights into Dreams. So that conversation with Louis was very relevant to me because I think I might have to go back and play Nights into Dreams again at some point to compare it to this. But I think it functions better than Tin Head in terms of what its mechanics are, but it's just so middling. You can't really pretend otherwise, whatever fun you get out of it. So that's where it belongs.
I'll take it. Patrick. Notable Nightmare Before Christmas fan, what do you think of Nightmare Before Christmas, the Pumpkin King?
Yes, but a Castlevania hater. I am going to put it at a 3.232.
3.3232. Why is that?
3.232. 3.232.
Wait. 3.232.
Yes.
Very confusing. Okay, why?
I gotta. Omicron the Nomad Soul needs some things to fall underneath of it to just raise it up a little bit. And also in truth, I do reward games for like trying things. I think, and I think this was very safe in a lot of ways, similar to what we were saying. It's just like it's like a non-ambitious version of a game I don't like that much. So. Even if it does have an IP that I enjoy, it also like so much of what I love about the movie is the like look of the thing and the music and other stuff, all of which the GBA game like really couldn't deliver on. So
I also just want to quickly interject and say that I remembered the thing I forgot earlier, which had to do with the look of the Game Boy Advance game.
Okay.
Those levels were all probably really brightly colored because the Game Boy Advance had no backlight for the screen, and so you had to be able to see the game. I bet you that's why the game looks more vibrant than the PS2 one.
Yeah, good call.
Which, I mean, honestly was a thing that I thought had going for it. Like, I liked that it was more vibrant. I also, while I agree with probably why, I'm not sure it was necessary because there were good Castlevania games for that I think were darker in tone that still worked on the Game Boy Advance.
Well, there's the second Game Boy Advance game they did. People complained the first one was too dark, so they did. I think it was called Harmony and Dissonance. Look at that game for a second; it looks insane. the colors are so wild because they were like, "All right, people couldn't see the game, so make it as bright as you can, I suppose." And it's wild to go back and play now because obviously you have a backlight to all of what they put on there, and it's wild looking.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and do myself last for this one. And the only struggle I'm having here is I would theoretically like to put it underneath Omicron the Nomad Soul, but I don't want it underneath Glover, which is really, I think, I struggle a little bit here. So I'm going to err on the side of... I'm going to err on the side of caution here, and I'm going to keep it above Glover but below Tin Head with a 4 point... I'm going to do a 4.25, which I don't believe I have. I'm just going to double check that right there. So I double check that. Yes, 4.25 I've not used yet. Yeah, because I do think... I definitely, Nights into Dreams is low. I see the appeal of that game, even if I don't think the mechanics of that game, hold up very well. I would like to see this game kind of underneath that. But I think it's like on par with Tin Head in my experience. It was like, this is fine. It's not awful, but I don't want to keep playing it. That's kind of it. It's like, this is great. I've had enough. I've tried it for 2 hours, and I definitely played it for maybe 6 hours longer than I should have. But I'm fine. I now know what it's like. I now can talk about it, and I now never need to go back to it. So that's where I stand with that. We'll see where that lands, but just after we talk about Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. Pat, I'm going to start with you.
All right. I am going to give Oogie's Revenge. Oh, yeah. Another thing I thought of that we didn't call out earlier. Both games use the Jack saying, "What's this?" as if it's a thing that Jack says all the time about everything. Like they're like, yeah, there's that song where he says, "What's this?" And then his entire characterization in both of these games is every time he's confronted with something he's not 100% sure of, he says, "What's this?"
Yeah,
I halfway expected for like a studio audience to start hooting and hollering every time he said it.
Yep.
Like a sitcom.
And it's in both games too. He says "What's this?" like 3 times in the GBA version, like immediately. So what's this? I'm going to give this game a 4.76. 6, just below the SNES Aladdin. Why? Because overall, I think it tried some stuff, and it was not a fun game, but I had fun.
Fair enough. Just below the SNES Aladdin, which I remember us being pretty harsh on, so it's still pretty bad, but could be a whole lot worse. Let's go, Louis. What do you think? Oogie's Revenge.
I didn't like this game. It tried some things, but like, I don't know. If you try to do something nice for me, but accidentally set me on fire, I'm not going to be like, well.
Oh, shit,
At least you tried.
You birthday
Right.
present.
You tried something
You
different.
try to do something really nice, I'll be like, this experience fucking sucked. It gets a 2. Flat.
a flat 2.
Wow. I'm just honored it
Oddly,
gets one of your
a
flat
number
numbers.
you have to use. So here we are.
Wait, what?
You have it.
Yeah,
you have
you've
you
never
have a
given just a
2.
plain 2.
Shockingly, you've never given anything just a 2.
I thought you said I had. It's like, what
No.
is a 2 moment?
Well, it's weirder that you have solid numbers still to use and not like whatever bullshit you've been giving us since we started this podcast. All right, Tro, let's go to you. What do you think? Oogie's Revenge.
How
How many soul robbers out of 10?
many? I gotta go with. God, what did I like this less than? I gotta go with 3.999. 3.999.
Great. Why 3.999? This puts it right above Glover for you.
I struggled a little bit with how to rate this because it is trying so hard to be a thing I really like, but it's, again, as much as I appreciate the audaciousness of making a game that from a property that is not evocative of it at all, like, it's an interesting idea, I guess, but it definitely doesn't work. And I can't pretend I had a whole lot of fun playing it because I often wished I was doing something different, like playing Balatro on my phone. And so that is where I put it.
Great.
We warned you not to do that, Michael.
No, it's a bad idea. It was really bad. My life is
You don't
in
want none of
shambles.
this, Dewey. All right. Going on to me, I'm same thing I said before. I'm in the Glover Omicron paradox, but whereas for the last game I erred on the higher end, I think this one I'm going to err on the lower end. I still liked it more than Daydreaming Davy, but I do think I got to go ahead and give it a. I'm gonna give it a 2.9, which still keeps it pretty low. But hopefully lands it where I see it expecting, because I do think I remember being more curious and more interested in Omicron than Nomad Soul, even if I don't like the packaging of which it was delivered to me. I felt like this had, not to say it had the same problems, it's not a similar game at all, but in the same way that like mechanic to visual the visual style and the world of Omicron drew me in, so I could at least want to try new things, even if everything about the gameplay was awful. This just didn't have that because I'd seen it all before elsewhere, so it didn't even have the bonus of the cool style. It didn't try to do anything new with the cool style to make me curious. So if you're not really offering me anything other than the schlock you're giving me, why bother? With that, guys, that locks in our first round. So looking at the list right now, after Tro magically transporting to a new location, we have 45 games on the list. At the number 40 spot, right under Tinhead, but right above Glover, is the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Pumpkin King for the GBA with a 4.034. Moving down, third to last in the number 43 spot is Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge for the PS2 with a 3.415. Both these pretty low, not shocking, but based on where they land, based on how they are related to the other games here that you see, how do you guys feel with these two games on the list?
I mean, I want them flipped.
What are you going to do? You can only change your score on one once.
I'm gonna bump Oogie's Revenge. My score for Oogie's Revenge up to a 5.336 to keep it under Hyperstone Heist, a perfect game. But
that goes ahead and changes this. Let's move it up the list. It brings it above Omicron the Nomad Soul, the number 42 spot, with a 3.559, but still under Glover, which has a 3.823.
This is like
Louis
playing
and
Balatro.
Tro.
I thought that was a better combination. I thought I was going to get so many more points than that.
You didn't level up the card enough to get it there, so I apologize. Louis, Tro, are you okay with this move Patrick did? Do you want to undo the mess that Patrick has made, or do you believe it belongs above Omicron the Nomad Soul?
I support the move Patrick has made, and I'm going to support it further by changing my score to 6.75 if I haven't used that already.
What? Hell yeah. Way to go, Michael.
Wait, really?
Yes.
So, all right, so you're moving it from... So we're moving. I got double finding it.
I'm so fucking proud of you, Michael.
Night Before Christmas from a 3.999 to a what was it again?
6.75.
Hell yeah! This
Now,
man knows his math. Hell yeah!
I have to ask because your initial score had it rated below the GBA game.
Yes,
but
that's true.
You are ranking it at a higher score than what you rated the GBA game. Are you hoping
I've had
it goes
this feeling
above
where I've just suddenly become filled with the Christmas spirit. Yes. And I need to bestow it upon this game.
No, I'm curious. Are you trying to get it
Michael.
above the Pumpkin King, or you're just trying to get it above Glover?
Oh no, I'm seeing how far I can push it.
I'm so proud of you.
All right. Wow.
I'll tell you why. I
Michael-
actually picked this number for a specific reason, which I can tell you. It's the number of hot topics in the United States. It's 675, so...
God bless you. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, from that perspective, this is wild. Did not expect this, let alone from you, who has given up on previous games that you've disagreed with and be like, not worth it. But you have now jumped it above Tin Head and above The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King,
Okay.
with a 4.247, underneath Nights into Dreams with a 4.508, and above Tin Head with a 4.13.
Hell yeah.
Is this just an embracing the chaos? Do you think it's a better game than the GBA game?
Absolutely. I think it's better than the GBA game.
Fair enough. Louis.
Yeah, I think my problem is that I see it as more of a Halloween game than I do a Christmas game. So I would like to change my rating to the game to be 1.031 in Halloween.
Touche.
I mean, respect.
1.031 for Oogie's Revenge, bringing that back down. It is now the lowest rated score that you've ever given a game at this point. But that does bring it.
That said, I would also give it a 10 if I knew that would put it above Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh my God, look at that.
Wild. You are a monster,
man.
sir. I don't.
I love you.
This has
Oh my God.
now dropped it back down below The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King, to just right below it with a 4.004. I don't need to shake the boat any further. I won underneath Omicron the Nomad Soul. I think I'm fine accepting this because I also think it's better than Glover. So that's fine with me. So I'm happy to lock it in where it stands. But before we wrap, guys, it's the end of the year. This is the last podcast of 2024. And it's tough. I wanted to find the right way to do this because I'm not here to give too much power. But as we look back on the last year, our return with the podcast, and coming back, we haven't had that many episodes under our belt in 2024, but I do think it's worth looking at what we did vote on here. All the Mario Karts, Balatro, Vampire Survivors, Little Samson. I'm now Little Samson was sticks
Glover.
out to me there. Glover, our final one that I.
Tin Head.
Thank you. Yeah, so memorable games, obviously. But with that, I wanted to give one more chance as we reflect on 2024 before going into 2025. Does anybody want to change your score once for one of our 2024 games?
I already maxed out. I mean, I already pushed Balatro as far as I fucking could.
Looking at it,
what was my
checking.
score for Balatro?
Well, so Patrick, right off that, I want to say you pushed Balatro to a 9.99. You can keep those decimals going if you want.
Thanks. What else? We did Mario Kart.
We did all the Mario Karts.
Which you famously
Balatro,
used your
Vampire
10 on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
With
can't go
that,
any
you
higher
can't
on
go
Double
higher-
Dash.
higher.
I love that. I was thinking about tanking Mario Kart 8 Deluxe further.
Jesus
You don't want to adjust your score for Duck Hunt. Just
No, he said this
Not-
year only. If he gave me
I'm-
any,
I'm not-
Yeah.
This year only.
oh,
Yeah,
right. Okay.
I'm here to protect Castlevania Symphony of the Night because you guys are going. I don't trust Patrick. I don't trust
help you.
anybody anymore.
I
Fucking
would help
A.
you, Noah.
Thank you. Troy, you're my one true friend. Petra, you gave Balatro. I'm trying to find it down. It's gonna be a second. You gave it a 7.2.
Oh, I underrated that game.
Yeah.
I would like to change it.
What do you think it should be?
Where does Balatro sit currently?
It currently stands at a 7.399.
I would like to give it a 8.45.
All right, we're gonna go to Balatro, and you're gonna give it an 8.45. So you are now moving it, in your eyes, pretty high up. You're moving it right under Elden Ring. What's changed your
It's got its
tune?
hooks in me. I bought it on iOS, which once again, don't do if you want to do anything else. And yeah, it's really got its hooks in me, which I had a feeling it would when we did it the first time, but I deliberately tore myself away, and this is why, because now all I do is play Balatro. That's not entirely true, but it is.
He's also smoking cigarettes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just backsliding like crazy.
This is airing. We're going to put this video live before the Game Awards. Do you think it's a shoe-in to win?
I think it has a chance.
I think it has a good shot.
I think it has a chance. I agree.
think the
It
wind
has
is
a chance.
behind it.
You think it has a shoe-in to? You think it's a shoe-in? To win?
I'm
You
not
think
going to say
it's-
shoe in, but I think it has a
Okay.
good chance.
What else is it up against?
It's up against Astrobot, which I fucking love, but I think it's going to be looked at as too kiddie of a game. Metaphor, Elden Ring DLC, and Black Myth Wukong.
I don't like that DLC is in the list. Oh, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yes, and Rebirth. That's right.
Yeah.
I would have a problem with most DLC on the list, but with what how much they've added in Elden Ring,
It's
think
very robust.
it makes sense.
That's
And
fair.
I don't think it's
I
something that's
truly,
going to be able to rehash over and over again.
Yeah, I hope it's. I hope it's Balatro, but I would be okay with it being Astrobot or Metaphor. I think Wukong left a bad taste in my mouth over its like whole, I don't know, developer stuff, and then
Yeah,
DLC
yeah.
or remakes. I don't think should be. I don't know. They're great, and they should be acknowledged for that. And there should be like there probably already is a category for remakes and for, what do you call it? DLC, but
Yeah.
game of the year I think should be a game.
Yeah, especially because you have to buy the Elden Ring full game to play Shadow of the Erdtree. It's not like you can
And
just
it
buy
won
by
too,
itself.
didn't it? It's here.
It did.
Elden Ring did win this
Elden Ring-
year, yeah.
And
Elden Ring did
and
win.
I didn't even
I-
like that game that much, but I think it deserved it.
It got its
so.
flowers. It doesn't need to win this time, and won't
Yeah.
probably.
But yeah.
Louis and Pat. So first off, did that bump Balatro up in the rankings? I actually don't remember what
Little
it was before, but it's up. I think it's up a little bit more. It's above Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and below Final Fantasy 6. Patrick,
What did I give
Louis.
Mario Kart 8
Also, I have
Deluxe?
to mention this: Chrono Trigger was not a 2024 game. Otherwise, that is almost certainly what I would have what I would have picked
But
instead.
you also weren't on that episode. You weren't on that episode, so
You're
I'm
right.
not,
I was not on that episode, so I guess I would, I would just be
we're talking about
giving it
something, guys.
another score.
So Patrick, you were asking what you gave something.
Yeah, what did I give Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
You're gonna be such a dick about this. You gave Mario Kart 8
If I
Deluxe.
can't make Balatro any higher, I'm gonna. What's up? What did I give?
You gave it a 6.119.
Okay, 6.119. I mean, that was already pretty mean. I think I'll keep it there. What did I give Mario Kart 64?
Mario Kart 64. I think you were nicer to. It was 7.41.
Yeah.
That's wild that you gave Mario Kart 64 a better score than 8 Deluxe.
I stand by it.
Man, you were blinded
Stand
by nostalgia.
by
But
it.
okay, what are you looking to do?
It's. I was honestly going to ask what my Mario Kart 64 score was and lower it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm okay. Ready? Here's my answer. I'm going to give Balatro a 9.99999999999. Just smidgen.
9.999999999.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's going to move it more than otherwise just
No.
make my job on trying to animate the list harder. 'Cause I have to put that number in. Because now, all right, it's probably rounding up at this point. Because once you start doing nines,
It didn't change at all, but that's okay. I did what I could.
What did I give Balatro, Noah?
We were
I feel
really
like I was
giving
around like an
flowers today.
8.5-ish.
Yeah, I think so. I'm scrolling over here. You give it an 8.2, an 8.2 for Balatro.
Oh, I can afford to go higher on that.
Over bringing Mario Kart 64 down.
Yeah, where is Mario Kart 64 on this list right now?
It's pretty low.
Actually, I think it's pretty low. I think the rest of us weren't that kind to it with a 5.2.
Yeah, it's really just
but
the
it could always be
multiplayer.
lower. I mean, I think the eternal question I asked myself: did I like it more than Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast, but less than Crazy Taxi on my iPhone?
That is a question you need to ask. You need to not only ask yourself, but live with the answer.
Now let me bump up Balatro a little bit.
All right.
I mean, there is a selfish agenda as well to seeing Balatro higher than something a couple spaces up from it. So,
What are you giving it?
let me do a 9.3.
Wow.
9.3.
9.3.
Making it- 9.999999. A 9.3 for Balatro. Make it the highest score you've given the game so far. We are
full
going
of
to
extremes at the end of the year.
Rock and roll.
And
where
it
we are
did,
right now.
Louis, take you exactly where I believe you probably wanted it to go, which is one right above Turtles in Time. That's
Excellent.
a 7.975. It now is a 7.989, right below A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, making it
Hell yeah.
number 6 of our games here, just short of the top 5. As host, I'm kind of excluding myself from this. I have been given too much power by being everywhere all the time, all at once. But we're going to go ahead and lock those end of the year scores in. And starting at number 45, we're going to work our way up on the list. E.T., Daydreaming Davy, Omicron the Nomad Soul, Glover, Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge, Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King, Tinhead, Nights into Dreams, Aladdin for the Super Nintendo, Plock, Sonic the Hedgehog, Duck Hunt, Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, Mario Kart Super Circuit, TMNT Hyperstone Heist, Little Samson, Super Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda, Mario Kart Wii, Crazy Taxi, Crazy Taxi for the Dreamcast, Mario Kart 64, Crazy Taxi for mobile, Crazy Taxi for arcade, Mario Kart DS, Fighters Destiny, Mario Kart 7, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, the original God of War for PS2, Mario Kart 8 for the Wii U, WarioWare, Mega Party Games, Vampire Survivors, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, GoldenEye 007, Chrono Trigger, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Final Fantasy VI, TMNT Turtles in Time, Balatro, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Mario World, Elden Ring, and ending 2024 as the best game of all time, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. There are so many more games, maybe some that could finally unseat them. It may take us a while to play them because we're having too much fun with really shitty games. But in the meantime, guys, where can the people at home find you? Pat, we'll start with you because otherwise you'll all wait 5 seconds before answering.
I'm PBCM on Blue Sky, and I am Patrick BC Malloy on Instagram. Please find me at either of those.
Sounds good. Pedro?
I mean, I'm Tro_Chelly at Blue Sky. Probably won't see me do anything there, but the account still exists. Maybe I'll come back to it sometime.
I'll say the water is far better there than it's been anywhere else. It's been a pleasant experience. Louis?
I also got myself a Blue Sky to have another social media account to neglect. So you can find me there at Mr. Lou Sky. That's Lew. And then, as always, I'm as available as I'll never be on Instagram at Naked Pictures of Louis Thomas. So find me, say something, see it go unread.
I won't lie, I couldn't help myself but throw in a little MacGuffin there at the end. And it felt right. You know, I used to do that with new guests when they come on, and we hadn't done that this year because we were kind of rebuilding the podcast in a way. So I thought, let me throw the guys a bone, see if they wanted to make some adjustments. And you know what? I had a feeling that would happen with Balatro. During the Balatro Vampire Survivors episode, you know, I was the one who actually tanked it back down to where it was. And as I mentioned, I fully pulled myself out there because my power is host. And the last thing I need to do is to come in here and shape, you know, the list in my favor unfairly. It's only right that this is not reflective of me in the end. It's reflective of the universe, of the world, of all of us together. And by keeping my grubby mitts off of it, I think I do just that. So that's great. What does 2025 have in store for the best game of all time? I'll probably do a larger video just about the Kaiju Lounge in general and some things I'm working on. But as far as 2024, what does it have in store? We're going to start bringing back guests. I'm talking with some people. I've very loosely done some pitches here and there to like start bringing some people onto the podcast again and start having a bit more of a variety of panel. I love the guys, and the guys will always be involved. We'll probably do something more similar to just a singular special guest and, you know, our regular rotating folks here because, you know, I think people have really enjoyed the pattern that they have together, but we also want to get new opinions and bring people and hopefully viewers along with those people in. So that's a big part there. We will also, and I know I've been talking about this already, have a page up on the website. I'm hoping to get that done. So by January, we should have a best game of all time page where you can see all the information about each episode as well as the list itself in its full glory. The numbers, not rounded up like I am when I'm talking, but the actual full numbers listed in one place so you can gawk and make fun. And then starting in January, I want to give you, the listener, some power. If you are part of the Kaiju Lounge Discord, and God, I hope you are. If you're not, you should join. Then we're going to start giving you guys a voice. The Discord will get an aggregate score that I will tack on to the scores of the episode. And you know what? If you have reasons for it, screw it. We'll read it out loud. I'm going to figure out what the logistical looks like. Maybe that's going to be during these, intros and outros. Maybe that's going to be work that in while we're filming. Anything's possible. We're going to take a look at that. But we're going to take your score into account and continue to shape this. So it should be fun. We'll figure out, maybe even let you guys shape some old scores that maybe you'd like to see elsewhere but are not. And I think also it's going to be just absolutely freaking chaos, which is what I hope for. We want chaos. We dream of chaos. So until then, guys, you can follow me at Boss Monster Kaiju on Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. We're going to start streaming on Twitch more often, which will be a lot of fun. Just about all socials there. If you are here watching the video on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you don't miss when we post another episode or any of the other things we do here on the channel. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting app or watching, because I do put the video version on Spotify as well, then, give a review, give a like, give a follow. These are all the things that help this podcast, this thing, permeate out into the real world, into the hearts, the eyes, and the ears of your fellow gamers. Until next time, we thank you so much for watching. If I don't see you, have a happy holidays. Enjoy the holiday break. Rest up. Play something fun. But take the time to take care of yourself. Because in 2025, we come back, we fight, and we play. Stay cool. Stay hip. And gosh dang it, stay heavy. Happy holidays.
The Best Game of All Time is an independent production, hosted, produced, and edited by Noah Waterman. Theme music by Peter Rowland. If you want to learn more, go visit www.thekaijulounge.com.